So my name is Rin Ure. I'll kick this off with an introduction. And I have just shy of 20 years of cybersecurity experience. I joined Microsoft in 2012, and I helped to build and architect the Xbox Live and Microsoft Gaming security operations. In 2014, that's when Satya took over. Things kind of got interesting, and they merged us in with the larger Windows Devices org, where we then took over and started building out things and building a hub and spoke model within the Cyber Defense Operations Center that is known today. So I've had an opportunity to really bring my cybersecurity experience, both commercially and from some of the government work that I've done to Microsoft, and help kind of shape the way that our security stacks from a threat hunting and a SIEM perspective are taking shape. So that's a little bit about me. The role that I have is I'm one of the principal tech leads over Azure Sentinel. I've been working in the SIEM market for, I would say 13 years of my just shy 20 years of cyber experience, both from like ArcSight, Splunk, QRadar, touched Logarithm, the traditional ELK stack, some lesser known SIEMs like Alien Vault and McAfee Nitro, but I've had a chance to touch quite a few of them in my career and to really kind of shape where we as a company wanted to take the SIEM market, where we've seen gaps, where we've seen customer struggle, where I've seen SOC analysts and threat hunting teams and blue teams struggle to build tools and integration and do the things that they've needed to do for their day-to-day operations. So I have a dotted line to the product group. I work very closely with our product groups across all of Sentinel's features and functionality. And so I'm going to kind of take a little different approach today in the way that I'm going to walk you through Sentinel. I'm going to take you on a journey through the eyes of a SOC analyst and look at things from once data is ingested and I can start making decisions around that data. I can carve out intelligence. I can look for indicators of compromise or attack. I can start integrating other tools, maybe my threat hunting tools. Look at, bringing in threat intelligence platform data, my identity story around monitoring a lot of those capabilities there, whether that is, from a first-party Microsoft solution or a third-party tool. It doesn't really matter. And we really think about this agnostically from a product perspective. And so that's the direction I'm going to kind of take you in today. And I'm going to start with data connectors. This is kind of our overview page. I'm sure you've seen a lot of slides and a lot of things around this, but really where I want to focus on my 45 minutes of fame and glory, I guess you could say, is diving right into the data, diving right into how you can drive value within Azure Sentinel. So you can see here, I've got a few connectors that are lit up green. I can see them on the bar here that they're green. I can see that I've got 15 connected out of 39 that we offer out of the box. But I also have some connectors that I'm bringing in data, and they'll show up green here, like my threat intelligence platform, right? I've got a tip that I'm actually going to show you, and we're going to take a look at what that data looks like, where I'm going to show you kind of what the configuration under the hood looks like a little bit. And then I'm going to show you how to make use of that data, which is kind of exciting. Got some Windows firewall data, lots of Syslog. In my past life, before coming to Microsoft, I was a Linux kernel developer. I know. But it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoy the back and forth between what Linux gives me and what Windows gives me and what I can do from a security practitioner. So bringing in Syslog, I've got a blog out there right now, a couple of them actually, but one of which is how to incorporate, PAN-TTY on a Linux server to go do key logging and looking at all of the activities and commands that are executed from an SSH terminal within a production Linux machine, trapping all of that information, bringing it in, and then doing analytics and correlation across that data. Go check it out. It's on techcommunity.microsoft.com under the Sentinel blogs area.
That's pretty awesome, by the way. Linux is like a first-class citizen, almost like hell froze over, right?
Right, exactly.
So that's awesome.
Yep. So we've got quite a few things going on there, including some of our first party, but you can see we've got a lot of different data sources that we can, we can bring in, we can plug in. I'm going to start with Syslog. I'm going to open the connector page. I want to kind of give you a purview into what this looks like. When we jump into the Syslog connector page, and you know what? I'm going to refresh this real quick. Because for some reason it's taken a while to load, and I know as soon as I refresh it, well, it'll start to come back to live here. All right. Hopefully, maybe.
The demo gods are never on your side.
They never smile upon you. That's the way the world works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is awesome. All right. Why is it taking its own sweet time on me? Let's see here.
I'm not seeing anybody sharing their videos, so that could be one bandwidth issue.
Well, which is why I'm not sharing my. Okay, there we go.
There it is.
Starting to refresh. Okay. So you can see here, we're going to graph the data for you. We're going to take a look at the different data, total data being received, but we're also going to give you some related content, workbooks, queries, and analytic rule templates that you can immediately turn on and gain value from the data that you're ingesting. All of our connector pages are this way. So you can also see how the configuration breaks down, what it looks like to ingest that data, what it takes to install the agent. We've also got a download for that. And then you can open up your advanced settings configuration and kind of go play around with that. But where the rubber meets the road really is where we step into next steps. And I can come in here and take a look at a lot of really good analytics that I can turn on. SSH brute force I've got enabled, which we're actually going to go look at an event in a minute. Failed Azure AD logons, success, right? This is Azure Active Directory along with security events and Syslog. This is pretty cool, right? A SIEM that's integrating between Azure Active Directory, Windows eventing, and Linux Syslog. That's pretty cool. We're also doing this across Office 365, right? To bring in multiple password reset by user and looking at that correlation across multiple services and data sets as that's coming in. And we'll take a look at some of those. Tor proxies, and then threat intelligence map across domain entities into Syslog, as well as URL entities into Syslog. And we're going to talk a little bit about entity mapping. This is a feature within Azure Sentinel that separates and differentiates us from other SIEM tools. But I wanted to start here and kind of give you a feel of the way that we can stand up data and ingest data into Azure Sentinel very, very, very quickly and start to drive data from that. Once we have our data coming in, right, and we can start making sense of that data, really then it's about jumping into those analytics. So you saw the connector page, how each connector page is going to have its analytics that are going to be particular to the data type that you've enabled and turned on, but we're also going to give you a library. And so under rule templates here, this is where you can come in and see all of the out-of-the-box rules that we're going to give you around severity, rule type, data sources, and one of my favorite features is the integration between the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So what you see here is you can come in and take a look at which detections map to which MITRE TTP and turn those on, as well as which MITRE ATT&CK TTP maps to a particular data source and how that rule is going to work. So let's actually jump into one of these. One of the ones that we'll take a look at is I've got a lot of threat intelligence. So we're going to jump into like email entity sign-in logs. We'll click the create rule, and this throws us into the rule wizard, or templates rather. You've got set rule logic. I'll just kind of quickly tab through these so that you can kind of see, right, what each of these are going to look like. I won't click on review and create just yet, but you can see that you can go, move across up there, as well as clicking the next step down here. Everything that we offer is completely up for grabs. It's up for customization. We're not hiding anything. It's all of it's exposed for you to be able to go and customize and change and tweak, all the way down to the rule logic itself within the Custo query, right? If you want to set the threshold from the look back from a single hour and the indicator of compromise look back from 14 days, and you want to look back even further, then go ahead, right? Change the values in here. If you have additional email regex that you want to include, right, come in and add additional email regex. All of our threat intelligence is stored into a custom table or a table type called threat intelligence indicators. And then from there, it's just JSON, and we're pulling out the JSON within that query from that table based on the table types or the field types within that table. And then, you can see we're doing a join. We're joining both the sign-in logs from Azure Active Directory as well as the threat intelligence provider, including any email data that we're bringing in based on email recipients. So you can kind of see this is, we're getting out of the static analytics and correlation where it's a one-to-one or maybe a one-to-many. It's a many-to-many, where we can correlate a lot of different entity types and the type of objects and how those objects have relationships to one another. So really exciting on that front. And then where we get into our entity mapping here is we take and we build a tertiary value. You think of key value pairs. Well, we add that tertiary value called a relationship, and that relationship is that entity type, where we can say, okay, well, if we see related entity types across base data, alert data, and other data that we're bringing in, whether that's from a threat intelligence platform or alerts that we're bringing in from third-party tooling integration or first-party tooling integration, we can stitch that intelligence together by its relationship and then show commonality so that the analysts aren't trying to guess, is this alert related to that alert? Do I have, some commonality across IPs, hosts, users, file names, processes, hashes, right? We want to really stitch together that commonality to remove out that guesswork so that as you tell a more holistic story across the data that you're seeing, you're being able to then carve that out, right? And see what that large picture looks like. So we have our data, and we've gone through and we've taken a look at our rules. We've enabled quite a few rules. You can see all of the rules that I have turned on are in use. I do want to talk about this too. If you see something that says phosphorus, iridium, anything that maps back to the scientific periodic table, this is our internal Microsoft threat intelligence team, and they are building these detections. And they look at these correlations and these detections based on threat actors that we have seen inside Microsoft. So this is a key tip that, like thallium, right, or known iridium, manganese or gallium, these are threat actors. This is how we classify our threat actors along the periodic table. And based on the activities and TTPs that we've seen from them, all of that goodness has been then poured into this correlation and analytic. So you can see here it's looked across DNS, Azure Monitor, and VM Insights for the VMs within the Azure Fabric, bringing in Cisco ASA, Palo Alto network data, and of course Windows security events. So we're doing a cross correlation within all 5 of those data sets and looking at all of the activities across those data sets based on the activities we've seen from that threat actor to date. And this is exciting for us to be able to monetize this and give this back to our customers, right? For our customers to be able to leverage and take a look at the type of threat actor activity that we've seen internally at Microsoft. So we've got our data turned on. We have analytics that are now firing, drawing out our intelligence and our signals, showing us indicators of attack or indicators of compromise based on our Custo queries that are tied back into that. One of the things then that we kind of want to take a look at is incidents, right? Because that kind of leads us, this journey as a SOC analyst that leads us into that next phase and feature set within Azure Sentinel. So one of the things here that I'll do, because I kind of want to make sure that you can see everything, I've got this one here that I started. This is a SSH potential brute force. Talked a little bit about this. This was coming from a couple of Ubuntu servers that I have. We're going to go look at which Ubuntu server was being SSH brute forced. We'll go look at the data behind that. We'll make some decisions around that from an analyst perspective. So this portal, this incident, this is where I can start to take a look at all of the activities that I'm seeing from those rule fires and make some decisions as an analyst. So the first thing I'll do is I want to click on the incident I want to go take a look at. You can see I already have assigned it to me. So you can see here, this is where I've assigned it to me. I've changed the status to active, but I'm leaving the severity right now as a medium because that's what it came in as. I want to go do some additional investigation and let's see what we see. The other things we see here is I don't have any tags yet. I do see that this is credential access. So it is mapped along the MITRE ATT&CK framework, TTPs. But I also have some other interesting notables. Immediately, I can see that it was one event that did the correlation. I can see one event equaled one alert. I can see one account. In this particular, we'll get to that in a minute. The host, the IP address, and so these are those entities that Sentinel was made aware of at the time that it saw this activity. When I dive into the full details of this incident, I have a couple of tabs here in the center. I have alerts, I have bookmarks, entities, and I have comments. And then down here, I've got my alert ID. I have my events from that alert ID, the generated, and the number of entities. And then, of course, my playbooks. My playbooks, this is how I'm going to work this incident. My playbooks give me automation and allow me to tap into APIs from integrated tools to go gather additional intelligence around the activities that I've seen. So I'm going to show you what that looks like as we kind of step into this data.
Are playbooks something that are Sentinel specific? It sounds pretty
So
powerful.
it is not Sentinel specific. It is leveraging Azure playbooks and logic apps, right? So Sentinel is tapping into that SOAR capability from the logic app library set. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, so let's dive into entities. So one of the things that we can call out here is I can see that it was an IP address. This is the IP, the malicious IP. It was trying to use a name Ubuntu to see if they could SSH into the box using a standard name. And I can also see I only have one associated alert to that, okay? This is great because the more alerts that come in, the more, and with the same commonalities, then they are linked together through that entity mapping so that I immediately can know, okay, I've got a lot of activities that I am seeing from these entity types. So one of the things that I kind of want to do here is I've got this IP address and I'm kind of curious. I'm going to come back to my alert and I want to know more about this IP. So I'm going to click on my playbooks. And I've got this really cool playbook called Get IP Reputation. And I'll show you the guts of this here in a little bit. But one of the things I'll do is I'll run this. And it triggers this playbook. And it's going to go gather more intelligence around the IP address that I just saw in this particular incident. So now I come back to my incident. I'm going to come click on comments because the way I have this playbook written is it's going to update my comments with the activities and the things that it got pulled back. So I'm going to refresh and it's going to pull back. Oh, wow. Okay. So this IP, I had no idea if this was going to find it in VirusTotal or not. We got lucky. So it found that 188.121.1.163 was recorded in VirusTotal's IP report data set. And so when it found that, it wrote a query for me. So I have this query that is using the data that we just pulled from VirusTotal. So this playbook, what does it do? Well, it goes out and it does a lookup. If the lookup happens to come back true, it takes the data, the results from the lookup from the API integration with VirusTotal, and it pushes the data into Sentinel into a custom log that I'm going to show you here in a second. And that custom log is my VirusTotal IP report log. So I've got this really cool query. I'm going to go grab it, copy it, and I'm going to jump into my alerts so that have it take me into my log analytics UI. I'm going to go open up a new query. I'm going to drop in the query that we just copied from the workbook that we just ran, the playbook, and I'm going to run this query. And it immediately pulls back the results that we just got from VirusTotal. So I can see it based on the query that I've written in there, and it's a custom query, but it's using very specific data sets based on what's returning from VirusTotal, so that I don't have to go build this. It's pre-built into the playbook based on its response, and you can completely customize that as well, and I'll show that to you here in a minute. But one of the things that I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm extracting the IP and I'm pulling out all the goodness, and I'm mapping it back to the owner of that, along with any detected or undetected download samples. It looks like it has a SHA-256. I have the who is information it pulled back for me. It looks like let's see, IP address and data set. It's got a lot of really good stuff, including resolution. So it looks like these are some URLs that resolved back to maybe Russia. I don't know. Technica.pl. I'll have to go look that one
Sounds
up.
Russian to me.
Right? I mean,
It must be
so
going for
this
a
is all
voting
live.
data.
I'm doing that, right? This is kind of cool. So you guys are watching me do this with a data set that I've not gone and collected before, and this is interesting. So now I have correlation. I can see that VirusTotal is telling me, yeah, we know about this IP address, and we know the hosts that this IP address resolved to. And so now I can do some additional things with this data. But the first thing I want to do is, yeah, this is definitely known bad. So let me close all this up. The one thing I then want to do is I want to make sure that I attach this to my incident. So I'm going to check the box, and I'm going to add it as a bookmark. And again, we have our entity maps, or our entity columns that we can map to. And one of the things that I want to map to is the owner based on what came back. So I know Internet Union, Spolka, yep, great. And then I certainly want the IP address, which, did we pull out an IP of this one? I don't know that we did. Nope, it looks like it didn't resolve within the query. We were able to look it up, but I don't see it come across there. So we were able to look it up from there, but that's part of the problem with VirusTotal, right? Is it doesn't always give us a way to parse that data out, right? And so I may have to go into a threat intel platform to go see that. But the idea here is to kind of map this back to like how I did my query so that you could kind of see the relationship. And that's okay. I'll still walk through this process. So then I may put in a tag that says like malicious IP found in VirusTotal. So I can tag it like that. I can add, maybe I have a campaign that I see that this is mapped back to. And so maybe I'll want to put like something from the periodic table based on the way that we do our threat actors, right? This is known behavior back to a particular threat actor based on the IP range that we've seen in the past. I don't know, right? So using those tags give you the ability to kind of break additional data and intelligence the way that you've seen that from the evidence that you've gathered and you're collecting. And then any notes that you want to add above and beyond the bookmark itself. We'll just again say, you know, found in VT for now. And then we'll give it a name, right? And we'll call it our virus total bookmark for this incident. And we'll click create. So we create our bookmark, and that then gets put into the bookmark table for us to then be able to go in and attach that. So we step back here. I see that my incident ID is 4190. And I step out into my hunting, which is where we do our hunts and we store our bookmarks. And you can see here, malicious IP found in virus total. And so now I want to add this to my incident, my 4190. That's right. And so I don't want to promote that. I want to attach it. Thank you. There we go. Add to existing. And I'll say 4190. I'll type that in because I know that that's the one I'm working on. I'll click my check mark and I'll add that to my incident. So now it's been added to my incident. I see the incident name. It shows up there. And I'm able to, right, take a step further into the incident. When I go back into my incidents now, and I go into that 4190 that we were taking a look at, this is where now I can see that my bookmarks have been added for that, right? Along with, if I want to remove it from the incident and any comments above and beyond, maybe I want to come in and add, you know, just attached bookmark from VT lookup. So now I've got that, including with the stuff from my playbook. All of this is starting to shape up nicely. Well, now I want to see what this looks like in its entirety. And so we step into the investigation graph, and immediately I can see that I've got my bookmark and my data based on what I've pulled from that bookmark. I also have the query that I ran, so that I see my query if I needed to go rerun that query, and then any of the results that query pulled back. So I have all of that data stored in my bookmark. I also have additional things here that I can come take a look at, right? Maybe I want to go see if there are related alerts from this IP, but I know there aren't. Has Ubuntu been used before? Oh, I've got 9 related alerts where other attackers have tried to use the name Ubuntu to go and attack. And it looks like they're all associated with, right, SSH, potential brute force. So now I'm kind of taking a look at this, and this is interesting. You know, what other threat actors are out there? What other IPs? What other usernames did they try and attack me with? And we really let Sentinel kind of piece all of these pieces together for us. And through the entity mapping, it's graphing the relationships with each of these entities, right? So we've got another 8 from there using Postgres and Git and Oracle from this IP address. Maybe I want to click on the IP or its associated alert. And I can also jump into the playbooks from here. And I can run a playbook directly from my investigation graph. And then, you know, start to associate data based on that playbook from that side of the house.
This is extremely powerful, Rin. And so it seems like, you know, what you were walking us through, everything you were doing with the bookmarking and with your incident reporting and kind of note taking really kind of comes to fruition here on this investigation piece. Is this kind of the main UI where you do most of your investigation work?
It is. And so what we do is we offer a timeline. So even though I may have started, right, with this alert right here, which was timed, let's see, what, 518, it looks like, time generated 519. So it may have started there, but you can see how far it goes back. from the time that I started from this one here, including my bookmark, to all the way back to April 19th.
Wow.
Yeah. Great call out.
Yeah. And so when you were on the hunting piece, was the hunting, did it have any, relation to what we're looking at here as well? Or, sorry, because I'm not a security expert, I don't really know much, but I'm
No,
just trying
I love
to put the
love
dots
that
together.
question. Yes, it does, right? And so we can jump back into that hunting, and we can see hunts, right? Queries that are already ready for us to kick off and take a look at. Bookmarks that we've ran that are maybe attached to other incidents, and tags that we've added to, but as well as a live stream where maybe I want to watch activity from a threat actor live as Sentinel receives it. And so all of these pieces drive, the ability to reduce time to investigate and reduce time to remediate through tools and integration, and giving, that capability right across automation as well as data and that intelligence. And so any SIEM platform is only as intelligent as the data it receives.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I promised you, and I only have a few minutes left, I want to kind of walk you through. This is what our Logic App playbook looks like. The one that I ran was that get IP reputation from, from our VirusTotal. So here we have a trigger. So this is the way that this works is Sentinel is smart, and it leverages the Logic App playbooks to say, okay, I know what the alert ID was. I'm going to pass that so that when you kick off this playbook, it's going to take that and all of the goodness, all of the intelligence, the data, the mappings, all of that's going to come into through that trigger, right? We're going to pass all of that information into the trigger, and then with that trigger, we can start to do some additional information. I'll show you this quickly. I know we're recording. But this is my API key. It's a free version, which is why I don't have a problem sharing this with you, to VirusTotal, right? I do initialize variable there so that I'm not having to pass that, down here through long, arduous strings. Instead, I pass that through a variable up top. And then I go grab all the information, contents from the incident itself, so that I have the subscription ID and the alert ID, and I have a lot of those information. And then I step into the IPs where I go and I pull the entities out from that list of IPs. And then from there, this is where the playbook takes a divergent, and it runs a for each loop against any IP that happens to be listed as an entity type within the incident, does a for each loop, calls VirusTotal, passes the API key, and it's the IP address, pulls back a response from VirusTotal, and then we parse it. We throw it into a JSON parser, we parse that, and then from there, we look for a condition. We fork it and we say, am I getting a response 1 from VirusTotal, meaning that the IP was found in the data set, or am I getting a 0? And if I'm a 1, then I send the data into Sentinel and part of my custom log, so that I can go look it up and include it as part of my evidence package within the investigation I'm doing. And this is where the goodness happens, and the query that I wrote, so that I can go extract that data, and I don't have to recreate that query every single time I do a new IP address lookup for maliciousness. So all of this is customizable and built into my Logic App. However, if it comes back false, then I tell it that, hey, the virus total IP report did not find that IP address, and maybe I need to go look at my threat intel provider. So any thoughts or questions on this? You kind of see the power behind incorporating playbooks to go gather additional intelligence and integrate that directly into an incident response workflow, so that as an analyst, I'm empowered and I don't have to go do these things manually. My tools are doing them for me.
Pretty sweet. So a lot of automation and exploration. It's kind of handed to you on a silver platter. Does anybody have questions? I know I've been pinging on the chat, but anybody out there that has security specific questions for Rin on Sentinel, go ahead, feel free to jump off mute or ping the chat. Everybody just so floored, or everybody's too afraid that you're gonna hunt down their IP address and make sure they're not a malicious scammer.
I will show you this while we're waiting for someone to raise their hand. This is MindMeld from Palo Alto. It's running on an Ubuntu server, and you can see the number of threat intelligence indicators I am mining. I have 8 miners. You can see what those miners are doing, from Alien Vault to bad IPs to DShield block, looking at ET-open compromised IPs, malware by domain list, an open fish feed, a ransomware tracker, by both C2 URLs as well as, I'm trying to remember what DS stands for, but these are then aggregated through an aggregator and then pushed into an output for Sentinel. This is kind of cool the way that these work, right? You can see here my client, my tenant, and my client secret. I'm connected directly to Sentinel from my threat intelligence platform, and you can see all of the data that my tip is sending into Sentinel. And how this actually works is I'll kind of show you. This is kind of cool. We do it through Azure Active Directory, believe it or not, and within Azure AD. Yes, you can run this against multiple tenants. That is a great question, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. We basically do an app registration within Azure Active Directory, so you can see my Palo Alto MindMeld app right here, and this application has access to log analytics that Sentinel sits on top of in order to push that data through the Microsoft Security Graph API from the Palo Alto Ubuntu server that is running that threat intelligence platform through this, that has the authentication and authorization to talk to log analytics to push that data into my threat intelligence indicator table for Sentinel to consume and take a look at. So this is another way to collect data and bring data into Sentinel above and beyond the traditional data connector pages that I showed you earlier. To kind of talk a little bit more about the multiple tenants, we do that through Azure Lighthouse. Azure Lighthouse is a way that we can enable cross-tenant and subscription and ALA workspace queries using the Kusto query language within Sentinel. And so that gives us that capability to query that data where it lives at rest within its ALA workspace, no matter what subscription or tenant it lives in. We enable that through Azure Lighthouse. It's a read-only, and then it allows us to read that data at rest and then pull the results that we've read back into the log analytics UI that Sentinel has. So, great question.
Awesome. Anybody else have questions? Thanks a lot, Alex, for pinging that. Anything else, Rin, I guess, kind of closing remarks that you want to touch base on?
Yeah, the last thing that I didn't really touch on that is very near and dear to my heart when we're threat hunting, we do give you KQL queries within the hunting section of Sentinel, but we also have an open source integration with Jupyter Notebooks. I'm a machine learning junkie myself. I love data and I love being able to look at things from a different perspective. And so we have built exploratory and guided hunting Jupyter Notebook workbooks for you to be able to jump into and immediately start to connect the data within Azure Compute that the Jupyter Notebook framework sits on, and Log Analytics workspace that Sentinel uses to do its correlation and bring that data into a data frame within the Jupyter Notebook itself. And and then use the Azure compute computations to run your machine learning algorithms on top of that. And these will continue to grow. And we have a lot of opportunities and content for you to consume, not only out of the box, but also within our community, our GitHub community. So if you go to github.com/Azure/Azure-Sentinel, all of that intellectual property content is all there for you to be able to consume and drive from, and to push directly into your Azure tenants and subscription, and take advantage of it. We've got a lot of contributors that contribute, data there. And again, this is one of those SIEMs that gives you the flexibility and customability. You know what I'm trying to say.
Customizability.
Thank you.
There you
Yeah.
go.
To drive the different type of correlation and analytics that you want to see in different use cases. And so lots of opportunity here across the board. I think the only other thing I really didn't touch on is workbooks, but this is our reporting mechanism. We have a lot of workbooks that again map back to the data sources that you enable. So between workbooks and Jupyter notebooks, you can do a lot of really cool visualizations and machine learning, and bringing data into unique ways of looking at it, unique pivot points, right? So I'll leave you with that. I know 45 minutes, 50 minutes isn't a lot of time, but I kind of wanted to do a different approach, take you on a journey through the tool, the way an analyst would look at it through the tool, from that perspective. So hopefully this has been interesting and worthwhile.
This was so powerful, Rin. How about we give you some snaps? Anybody else wants to get off mute and join me with some snaps? Go for it. I thought this was great, being able to actually look and see and feel exactly what it is like to be in your shoes, or somebody who's going to be working with Azure Sentinel. I personally thought the investigation, that really kind of blew my socks off, and just how deep you could go, the timeline thing that you worked through, and even the part speaking about Jupyter notebooks and being able to really make the most of your data, and God knows how many different ways, open sourcing it, or running machine learning models. It's really strong.